Hey guys, back with another video, and we've been exploring here on the channel how maybe we are living in the time of absolute deception, where the devil gets a chance to fool all the nations on the planet or on the earth and gather them to war for a battle. But sometimes you kind of have to figure out, what does a blueprint look like for deception? And so today I figured what we would do is we would go through, I think, a really big piece of this blueprint of deception. And we're going to look at these world fairs. Now, this isn't the first one, but we're going to check out the 1893 Columbian Exposition. This is also called the White City. This is in Chicago, or it was in Chicago. And this will be a start of a little architectural study that we're going to do here um, on locations throughout the world. But just to level set, how did we kind of get here? In The official narrative is that in 1890, Congress awarded Chicago the honor of hosting the World Columbian Exposition. This was supposedly going to be a 400th anniversary of Christopher Columbus's arrival to the New World. And the challenge here that they were trying to solve for is that on Lake Michigan, they had 600 acres of swampy, undeveloped land, and they were supposed to turn this into a futuristic city filled with marvels of architecture, engineering, technology, and it had to be done in 18 months. So take a swamp marshland, all the things that you would need to do to stabilize it, and 18 months later, turn this into a marvel of architecture. Now, there's three folks who are responsible for this: Daniel Burnham, Frederick Olmsted, and the last guy, George Ferris. So we'll just get right into this and we'll start. So this here is an image, right? Bird's eye view of the fair. And you can see here a massive, massive area, right? I mean, just to give you an idea of how big this is 640 acres of land, which shows this entire area. Now, for reference, an American football field is 1.32 acres. This is approximately 484 football fields. Just a massive, massive place. And you could see right here in the front this massive building. You can also see an elevated railway that takes its all the way around over here to this train station and train depot. Over here again, this elevated rail, and all the way back here, this amusement park. This is all part of this one whole area, right? So, couple things that were featured in the front right here: world's first moving sidewalk, extended 2,500 feet, carried 6,000 people at a time, right? 5,280 feet is a mile. So this thing is almost a half a mile long. 200 classical neoclassical buildings. Some of these buildings are as large as 30 football fields. A massive artificial water system, complete with lagoons, canals, and a grand basin. This is the Grand Basin area over here. I mentioned the railway that's there, and it looks small here. This is called the Statue of the Republic, and we'll just keep this in mind as we look in the pictures, just to get an idea. But massive, massive area. All this was a swamp. This is the liberal arts building, or the manufacturing and liberal arts building. This building, for size, could seat 300,000 people in the central hall. It used 17 million feet of lumber, we're told, 12 million pounds of steel, and 2 million pounds of iron. Size wise, this is four times the size of the Roman Colosseum. And if this building was standing today, it would rank third in volume and eighth in footprint on the largest building list. Massive, massive building. I mean, just look at these columns, look at this archway. Very much on the inside here looks Romanesque, right? As you see in other Roman buildings. This is directly on top of this building on the far left. So this is looking over the basin and the court of honor, as it's called. You can see there's fountains down here, but just a massive area, right? Absolutely massive. This is that grand basin that's in the middle where I was pointing out that statue. You'll notice in the back here, this is a moving piece which connects to this, right? So that you can have vessels go through here through the waterway. But the Statue of the Republic, right? A gilded colossus, apparently designed by Daniel French. It's 65 feet tall, including the pedestal. It's 100 feet tall. At the time, this was second in size only to the Statue of Liberty, right? So really, really doubling down on all the stuff we're going to do here. These boats, by the way, some of them were just following a path, right? People didn't even need to do any sort of paddling. This is the horticultural building. This is a massive glass domed structure. It's designed in the Venetian Renaissance style, and it featured a central pavilion over 200 feet square. This dome reaches 115 feet high, and around this dome, you can see there are these smaller glass domes. And so all four of these would basically let it function as a giant greenhouse on the inside. When you went inside, you would see lush gardens, towering tree ferns from Australia, and a miniature mountain covered with tropical plants. There was exhibits from global botanical gardens, the Japanese Imperial Garden, and a model of the U.S. Capitol made out of Canadian thistles on the inside. The arts building or the arts palace, this is one of the only buildings still there, and we're told that they decided to build it in brick. I'm assuming then they just put this facade on the front, but you could just see how ornate this is. Basilica style, as if you were in Rome or somewhere in Italy or any place where the Romans were prominent. You could see just how large this structure is from the front. Um, the story goes that because all of the artwork internationally was going to be stored here, they decided that they would build it out of bricks, so that way they could keep it from being lost to fire or any sort of decay. This is the inside, though, right? So not only did they do the outside, you can see just how beautiful and ornate the inside is, and it almost looks like, I mean, before they put all this stuff in here, right, and just cluttered it up with as many things as they could fit on the wall space, it's still a beautiful space, right? You can still see these columns, you can still see the intricate detail. This is a beautiful, beautiful location. Moving back outside, this is the Palace of Mechanical Arts here, right? It was also called Machinery Hall. Um, this building, 846 feet long, 492 feet wide, and had an additional annex that would house additional exhibits. It's built in a classical European style, and inspired by a renaissance of Seville and Spanish cities. This inside of this building, they would showcase things like engines, dynamos, early automation technologies, and they also had in the innovative exhibits a machine that could sew wood leather with a wire thread. And then you start to see things for like mass production, measuring of coffee, systems of mass producing everyday items like hooks, eyes, chains, matches, right? So this was like the place that you were going to go to so that, you as a captain of industry, I guess, could see, how you were going to, have the industrial revolution go forward. But just look at how massive this is. I mean, these made out of supposed lath and plaster. I mean, just beautiful, exquisite buildings. And just keep in mind as we're looking at all this, right? Like all of the fountains, this ship over here, 18 months to build an entire city from nothing. So there's millions of tons of earth that need to be moved to create a lake, or create a waterway or just to make solid ground because this used to be a swamp, right? So hundreds of massive buildings all done in this short period of time of 18 months. Now, going again off of official narratives, the the Empire State Building took over a year, one building, right? Not an entire city. And the Hoover Dam, one of the greatest feats of engineering we're told in the modern history, took 5 years to complete. And they were actually ahead of schedule. They gave themselves 7 years to be able to build that. Yet somehow the White City in Chicago, in 18 months emerges. And then 6 months after all of this fair is done, after all the people are done, collecting their tickets and walking through here, it was all just completely destroyed, minus that art palace that we were looking at before, right? Just kind of an unbelievable and ridiculous story. I talked about George Ferris being one of the three people that were going to be involved in this project. That last name is where we get the Ferris wheel from, right? 264 feet tall, 36 massive passenger cars. Each of them could hold about 60 people, so about 2,000 people could ride this at once. First time they ever did it here, no problem, right? In the back here, the administration building, this building was 250 feet tall, and that's a 120-foot diameter dome. This dome is larger than the US Capitol's dome. Again, really big, really grandiose, going above and beyond probably what would need to be done. And I have to say, very mature trees. I mean, I guess these could be new trees, but it's kind of hard to believe that. But this, I mean, you could just go look up cities in Europe and, look up this particular style. And, you would be hard pressed if these flags weren't here to be able to tell where it was in the world, right? You probably wouldn't have thought that this was in Chicago, but just look at this building, just look how large this is, right? And then they doubled down again, and on the inside, we've got these beautiful archways, we've got double pillars that are next to each other, multiple floors. I mean, just exquisite, right? The inside of the dome, I'm sure at the top looked just gorgeous, right? And then it doesn't stop there though. I mean, most of America did not have electricity lights of this fashion, right? So the court of honor at nighttime, looking at the same, administration building completely lit up, you know, there was 100,000 lamps. Or, some estimates say there's 150,000 lamps, right? So a total of 250,000 sources of light throughout this entire city. First time ever. So it's pretty amazing how they were able to mass produce all of these incandescent bulbs to be able to do this when it doesn't seem like anywhere else in America really has electricity like this. And just a reminder of, some of these halls and the exhibitions that were going on the inside, just how big this is, right? Like this is a mock-up of Switzerland on the inside here. I mean, it is unbelievable what they were able to put together. And even if somebody were to say, hey, that's a mold and they just use these molds over and over again, the stuff to be able to make the mold, right, still weighs a lot. And the roof trusses that are here, right? Like these steel trusses to be able to create this additional space, that needs to bear weight, right? There has to be some footing there. These people don't even have reinforced concrete. The One of the other things that was revolutionary here, this is a train station, train depot. You can see all the various train lines. But these featured a third rail, right? So there was an electric railway stretched 3.5 miles, and this was the first time ever using this third rail system. And here you can kind of see this bird's eye view, the fairgrounds. This is on the north end looking south. And at the lower left here, you can see these four passenger cars stopped at the Mount Vernon station. And, this full intramural railway system, completely electrically powered. This is Lake Michigan over here on the side. And you can just look and count all the dome buildings that you see here, right? There's 37 out of the 200 buildings being shown here in the distance. You can see those same steel roof trusses inside of that massive building that we were looking at. But if these flags were not here, and you would have a hard time guessing where this was. In fact, you probably would have picked somewhere in Europe, not in America, right? Inside of the train station, again, doubling down. Look at the ornateness of these columns. Look at these archways. I mean, they really went all out inside of this location, right? I mean, the insides of these archways, multiple clocks up here to be able to have time from, different places in the world. I mean, they really went above and beyond. It didn't have to look this nice, but it just looks exquisite. Look at this, right? This is amazing. And again, we're told 18 months to take a swamp and build an entire city like this. So this is not the first one, like I said. This was the 1893 World's Fair. There are other ones that are here on this list. There's also, these are just the US ones, right? There's a, a, a world list that's a lot larger than this, right? Of these locations. And usually the time frame that we're told that these are built in are usually really, really short. It's just something that wouldn't be able to be done today with modern equipment. You wouldn't be able to source the resources. You wouldn't be able to do all the planning and have things done in such a short period of time. So pulling this back together with this overall theme of, let's say he does get released for a short season to deceive everybody, right? Before his final defeat. Could something like this actually act as an example of this mass deception, right? What if this exposition was not necessarily a blueprint of how industrial society was going to move forward or how cities could be lit? What if this was the blueprint for how you erase history? What if this is the blueprint for, hey, going forward, this is what we're going to do. We will take places away that kind of go against the narrative because you think about America as a young place. This is just unbelievable that this would be here or that it would even be able to be done in this amount of time when people don't seem to be able to do things like this today. So just trying to set the stage here using some things that we know and that we have stories for that we can reflect upon that's been pretty recent in our lives. That could this be an example of that blueprint of deception, right? So I hope this was fruitful. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it made you think a little bit. I hope it made you want to take out the Bible maybe and start reading the book of Revelation, start checking out this time that I'm talking about, because it does feel like we live in a time which is just overwhelmingly deceptive. And it seems like more often than not, there comes a time where it's like, hey, that thing that we were told about, it actually wasn't true, right? It's 2025. About 5 years ago, everybody went through something that we were told was true, and it was devastating. And it seems like the after effects of trying to treat this thing has been far worse than the scary thing we were told in 2020, right? So just think about it, pray on it, and till the next time, God bless.